U.S. government has revealed that a Pentagon lab in Utah mistakenly sent live anthrax to an American Air Force base here in Korea. U.S. military officials say the active sample, which was used in a training exercise, has since been safely destroyed. Our Kim Hyun-bin breaks down what happened.
Questions are bound to be asked about how a live sample of one of the deadliest diseases known to man was mistakenly sent from a U.S. military research facility in Utah to an American air base in South Korea. The Pentagon said on Wednesday that live anthrax was sent to 9 U.S. states and the Osan Air Force Base south of Seoul. A Pentagon official stressed that all the samples have since been destroyed in accordance with appropriate protocols. The U.S. Defense Department says there is no known risk to the general public, and no personnel have shown any signs of possible exposure. It appears the samples were shipped from a proving ground in Utah on April 30th, then distributed to labs in 9 states and Korea. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention was alerted to the mix-up after a lab in Maryland discovered their package included live samples. It's thought the CDC notified Osan Air Base on Saturday. Live anthrax can cause severe illness and even death among people who come in contact with it, while dead anthrax samples can be used for research. Our terrorists sent live samples of anthrax through the U.S. military, government, and media targets back in 2001, killing 5 people. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
We start at the National Assembly, where last-minute negotiations are underway on legislation to overhaul the public pension system, among other pressing issues. Hanning's National Assembly correspondent Park Ji-won has more details on the political deadlock. Ji-won, what's the latest?
Hi, Paul. As of now, floor leaders of Korea's main rival parties are still in discussion at the Assembly over a number of issues linked to debt-ridden civil servant pension reform plans. Earlier, both sides had agreed to pass the much-needed civil servant pension reform bill at today's full Assembly session, as well as some 50 pending bills. However, if the current talks break down, those bills may not make it to the Assembly.
So, Ji-won, there's been lots of dialogue leading up to this point. What's still keeping the parties at odds?
Well, Paul, they're actually now in agreement on the pension reforms, both civil servant pension reforms and plans to strengthen the much larger National Pension Service for the general public. However, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy is demanding the inclusion of rules to implement the Sewol-Ferry special law as a package deal with those pension reforms. And that's where the talks seem to stall. The liberal opposition argues, according to the party's May 10th agreement, the focus of the current extraordinary assembly session was to resolve pension issues and improve Sewol-Ferry ordinances. Bereaved families of the ferry victims and civil organizations have raised concerns about the investigation committee's impartiality. But the ruling minority party said the assembly should first focus on passing the pension. Focus on passing the pension bill.
So, Ji-won, give us a potential scenario. What will happen if the two sides can't reach an agreement tonight?
Well, the full assembly was originally scheduled for 2 p.m. It was delayed to 5 p.m. and then again to 8 p.m. tonight, as the floor leaders from both parties are still in discussion. Well, if they come to an agreement in the next 2 hours, there's still a chance that the full assembly will convene at 8 p.m. tonight and pass the contentious pension reform bill. But if the negotiations fail, it will get pushed once again into June assembly session. And I will bring more updates at 10 p.m. newscast with more updates.
Health authorities have confirmed that 2 more cases of Middle East respiratory syndrome in Korea, bringing the total number to 7. But as our Han Da-eun explains, 2 more cases of Middle East respiratory syndrome in Korea, bringing the total number to 7. But as our Han Da-eun explains, that there might be new cause for alarm as suspected MERS patients boarded a plane to China.
The 2 latest patients diagnosed with the MERS virus both had close contact with the first patient. One, a 71-year-old man who shared the same hospital room as the first patient, and the other, a 28-year-old health professional who treated him. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says the 2 were under home quarantine since the confirmation of the first case last Wednesday, but developed symptoms overnight. However, the CDC is now facing a bigger problem. To the shock of many, authorities have confirmed that a suspected MERS patient left home quarantine and boarded a plane to China on Tuesday. He's the son of the third patient, who was also secluded at home. According to Yonhap News Agency, he is in isolation at a large hospital in China undergoing diagnostic tests. The CDC is being grilled over its incompetence, especially for the loose monitoring of dozens of suspected patients. Some medical experts say the situation may get much worse.
I expect several more MERS cases within the next few days, as many people were exposed to the first patient not knowing he carried the virus. Also, some people were infected from the suspected patient who flew to China. There will be many more tertiary infections, and in that case, we're facing quite a serious situation.
The center has isolated the suspected patient's wife, as well as 10 other medical staff who may have had contact with him. Officials are also going through the plane's passenger list. There are now 73 people in home quarantine. 한다은 아리랑 News.
For Arirang News, let's start with the headlines. Political deadlock at the National Assembly. Rival political parties are holding last-minute negotiations to resolve the long-stalled pension reform bill. The 11th hour talks come on the last day of the current plenary session. Anthrax in Korea. The Pentagon reveals that live batches of the deadly agent were accidentally sent to research labs across several U.S. states and an American Air Force base here in South Korea. And the potentially deadly MERS virus continues to spread. 2 more South Koreans are confirmed to be infected, bringing the total number of cases to 7 in just over a week. This as another suspected patient skipped out of isolation and traveled to China. Now we start at the National Assembly, where last-minute negotiations are underway on legislation to overhaul the public pension system, among other pressing issues. On his National Assembly correspondent Park Ji-won has more details on. And staying in the political landscape, the main opposition bloc wants to give itself a complete overhaul ahead of next year's general election and the presidential vote in 2017. Leading the efforts is the party's innovation chief, who has a daunting task of uniting the party, which is struggling with internal strife. Our Ji Min-gil has more.
The MPAD's Reform Committee, led by the former head of the Gyeonggi-do Provincial Education Office, Kim Sang-gon, has been tasked with reversing the party's tumbling popularity and resolving factional feuds.
From this moment on, we must stamp out factionalism. I urge party members to stop holding meetings that divide our party.
Kim stated that he will not allow any individuals or groups to stand in the way of the committee's activities. The former superintendent must settle in-house discord in the wake of the MPAD's crushing defeat in the April by-elections. The MPAD's leader has thrown his support behind Kim.
Our party is not solving the daily hardships facing the Korean people. By reforming and resolving our problems, we can become a party that makes strong economic policies.
Moon added that the committee's goal was also to ensure the MPAD is victorious in the 2016 general elections and the 2017 presidential election. However, the MPAD's former co-leader says taking responsibility for the party's poor showing in last month's by-elections must be the first step.
Taking responsibility for our defeat in the April 29th by-election is the reform we need now. It seems the spark for this reform has been lost for some reason.
Political analysts say the reform should reflect the MPAD's distinctive liberal spirit and demonstrate that the party has the strength and unity to work on behalf of the people. The Reform Committee will complete the selection of its personnel by early June. Ji Min-gil, Arirang News.
And in other news, the U.S. government has revealed that a Pentagon lab in Utah mistakenly sent live anthrax to an American Air Force base here in Korea. U.S. military officials say the active sample, which was used in a training exercise, has since been safely destroyed. Our Kim Han-bin breaks down what happened. Authorities have confirmed that 2 more cases of Middle East respiratory syndrome in Korea, bringing the total number to 7. But as our Han Da-eun explains, that there might be new cause for alarm, as suspected MERS patients boarded a plane to China. Korea and Uzbekistan held talks in Seoul today. It's their second meeting in less than a year, following Park Geun-hye's visit to Tashkent last June. Chae Sun reports.
Uzbekistan, rich in natural resources and home to 30 million people, has one of the fastest-growing economies in Central Asia. The Uzbek economy expanded by more than 8% last year, and the government there plans to invest $55 billion into infrastructure development, including road and airport construction over the next 5 years. In recent years, Korean companies have won more than a dozen of Uzbekistan's project orders worth nearly $7 billion.
Coming up on Primetime News. This morning, hello, I'm Lee-Jun in Seoul. We have a lot on our plate this morning. Let's first take a look at some of today's highlights. Evolving or devolving? It's been 50 years since Korea and Japan established political ties, but relations are getting rocky also on the economic front. Korea's stock markets are set to see some dramatic changes next month. All that are aimed at adding vigor to the country's forces. President Park Geun-hye has pressed the head of the Japan-led Asian Development Bank for his partnership in managing an anticipated surge in infrastructure projects in Northeast Asia. Meeting with Takehiko Nakao at the presidential office on Tuesday, President Park underlined that mutual cooperation was needed with Seoul and the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, which Tokyo has chosen not to join. The meeting marked the first time in 12 years a Korean president has met with the ADB leader, suggesting that the Park administration is aiming to separate political issues from economic ones. Also on Tuesday, Seoul agreed to supply ADB $600 million in soft loans for development projects in Asia. The Korean government has treated U.S. private equity firm Lone Star in a fair and equitable way without discrimination and in line with international law. That was the statement Seoul released on Tuesday as the first round of hearings in the multi-billion-dollar case wrapped up in Washington past Saturday. In Korea's first investor-state dispute case, Lone Star is suing Seoul for nearly $4.7 billion, alleging that its hand was forced to pay unfair taxes and sell off its stake in Korea Exchange Bank at a loss in 2012. The second round of hearings is set to resume on June 29. Korea's stock market will be seeing some big changes